Irma. Welcome to another review video, and today I want to talk to you about The Last Witch by Andrzej Sapkowski, the first Chronicle installment in the Witcher series. It's not really part of the overarching saga, but there are two installments. This is the first one that tell short stories and which are a very good introduction to the Witcher universe. I'm quite new to the Witcher universe. I've never played the games. I am married to a huge Witcher game fan, but I myself have never watched him play it or seen the graphics, so know the storyline. I, however, watched the first season on Netflix. Wasn't the plan. I intended to read the books before I watched the series. I even tried to go through with that because Michael watched it alone, but he was so taken by it and so telling me I would love it. And I need to admit that Gerald is kind of, I like nice ice candy. I love Henry Cavill, so I just watched it, and now I saw that season two has wrapped up. So I thought it's time to read the books before season two hits TV because I maybe it's a little bit silly, but I hear the same things from players. I read these books imagining the people of the series. And not that that's a bad thing, but there are some huge differences between the characters cast in the series and the characters in the books. And I just don't want to be. I want to see what the original story was about before my mind gets even more mm, adapted, if that's even how you pronounce it. But let's talk about this book. It is actually a short story collection, but also there's an overall frame in it. So in the overall frame, we follow Gerald, who is healing from an injury in the temple. And those chapters are intertwined with short stories about all the monsters and the people the Witcher meets and fights. We have the Striga. We learn why he's the butcher of Blaviken. We have the Child of Surprise. We meet it's really short chapters, but a very good introduction into the world of The Witcher. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I absolutely loved it. And I think part is because it is very fairy tale-esque, very mythologically based. You see very clearly that some stories are based around fairy tales. Beauty and the Beast is one that you just immediately intercept. There's a little hint to Snow White. There are multiple very well known fairy tales, and the others are absolutely based in myths and sagas. Russian, I think, more Russian, more um, sagas. These books, I don't know what I expected. I kept people hearing they were difficult. So I expected some really big prose and difficult, but it's actually written in a very simple, very stilled way, and that made it even more like someone telling me campfire stories because it is so simplistic in its writing, and really sometimes it's actually just it's very fact based. It's like someone telling you, yeah, around a campfire, a story from their childhood, a story before bedtime, without all the very lyrical prose or something. It's just very to the point, but with a great sense of humor, and it's just that made it so whimsical and so very fairy tale-esque. You could really imagine sitting around a campfire, the stars above you, listening to someone tell you about this mythical witcher who hunts monsters and those stories. I absolutely loved it. And simple is something I would, yeah, say about the whole story. It's not difficult stories. It's because maybe these are the introduction to the world and they are short stories, so the storyline is wrapped up. But everything is simple. It's very basic, basic human emotions, basic characters, not a lot of background, but just very simple introductions. You meet Dandelion, you meet you meet Jennifer for the first time, you meet Ciri's parents, who were all gonna be key players in the actual saga. But in this book, we just meet them. We see a little background from them. It is explained how people get to know each other or why people have certain relationships with each other, but the characters aren't fleshed out except for Gerald himself. I think you get a very complete look at who Gerald is as a character. You get explained what a witcher is, that he is actually a mutation from a human being. And Gerald is a kind of man, or for me, it felt like Gerald is a kind of man who wants to be human, who looks at humans and wants to be one of them. Although he's standing outside, you also see that in the stories that civilization and villagers and all people around him see him as something different, as a mutation. Sometimes they are more scared of the Witcher than they are of the monsters, or they treat him very bad. It's good to catch their monsters, but he isn't part of society. He's somebody to look down on, someone you pay to do dirty work and then just toss out. That's a very strong image I got from this book. But Gerald in itself, he has emotions, because it's said that witches don't have a heart, but you clearly see that Gerald has emotions. He has a very clear view of the world, and he keeps himself very strict to his own um to his own moral code. He I could respect that. He's a grumpy guy in the book, and I think he's the same. I think also he's the same in the series, to be honest, and I suppose he's the same in the games. But I really liked how he was how he respected his own moral code. He had a very clear view of what was wrong and what's right, and how far he wanted to go, and what made a monster and what didn't make a monster. And seeing through Gerald's eyes made you wonder, in many cases, who's the monster in this game, in this game or in this story? Is it the monster that we're talking about, or is it the humans, and what defines humanity and what defines the monster? And Gerald has a very clear view of that. He has a very clear undertaking of what he thinks is right and what is wrong. There's also a piece about lesser evil and bigger evil, and Gerald is very, I thought that was a defining point for how I saw Gerald in this story. I really loved him. He has a very dry sense of humor. Of course, I was a little bit tainted by the TV series, because I already got the new Gerald. I already knew he was actually a decent guy, but you also learn in the short stories that he is a very decent guy. That is why he has this friendship with Dandelion that is in first, when you look at it in first view, it's not one of the most logical relationships, because yeah, witches and relationships is just not an important something that happens a lot. He has also something that is apart from the television series, and I've forgotten her name, but he has a very strong motherly figure in these books that lives in the temple. She's a priestess who cares about Gerald, and he has this warm relationship with her. That was something I wish they had explored more in the TV series. Maybe that's still up to come. Um, Gerald is also, and then we come to the fact how women are portrayed in this book. Wherever Gerald goes, and I just said that society looks down on him and treats him bad, that is apart from all the women, because apparently when Gerald comes near, women want to get naked and have sex with him. Was something that I just saw. This book even opens with a scene that Gerald is having sex with a priestess who doesn't speak, and that sets the tone for the, 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 the development in that case for Gerald's character. Where he goes, women follow, and women want to be with him. And I thought that wasn't maybe it's a bit old school, maybe it's how these things are written, but I was, yeah, everywhere where he goes, women swoon over him. There is quite a lot of sex in this book, but never explicit. It's mostly sex off page, and that is actually how women are mostly portrayed in this novel. And I get that some people call this a sexist book in the form of that women are always a plot device, or they are evil and should be slain. They're seen as a monster, or they develop into a monster, or they're there just to sexually please Gerald, or they are, yeah, in love with Gerald, or they are a motherly figure to Gerald. But I don't completely agree with that statement because I'm keen to see where this story is going, because I'm not completely convinced that that is the way women will be portrayed throughout the series. I mean, we meet some very powerful women in even in this book. I'm thinking about Jennifer. Jennifer is chaos incarnated. She's this powerful magical being. I wanted to say wizard, but she's not really a sorceress. Sorceress, that was the word I was looking for. And I think her development can be very interesting because she's a very morally gray character. And I think she can be a very powerful character. Ciri, she's a girl. We don't see a lot of Ciri in this book. We don't even meet Ciri in this book. But I think we know she's coming. She's a girl. She's gonna be a powerful girl. And then the womany, the woman who is this motherly role in this book. I'm really sorry that I didn't look up her name in advance. I'm really sorry. That just makes me a bad reviewer. But I think that woman also she's motherly, but she rules that temple. She's the head priestess of that temple. I don't think you should look at it's not a black or white situation. I think there are some strong women in this series. We just need to explore them more and see where this story is going and if it is actually going to give us also character development for these women. I'm actually really surprised. I loved it so much. Really good introduction to the world of The Witcher, and I can't wait to continue the series. So that was my review, my first introduction to The Witcher book world. Have you read The Witcher series? Let me know what you thought.